When my wife died, her rich boss called me before I even made it home from the cemetery and said, "Samuel." I opened the envelope Nora left in my safe. "You need to come to my office right now." Then his voice dropped so low I almost could not hear him. "Do not tell your daughter. Do not tell her husband. If they know you are coming here, you may not make it through the night." I thought grief was twisting his words into something darker than he meant. Then the elevator doors opened on the 17th floor of his building, and I saw my son-in-law standing outside the locked glass office door with my wife's funeral program still folded in his hand. That was the moment I understood my family had not gathered to mourn my wife. They had gathered to make sure the truth stayed buried with her. Before I tell you what happened, drop a comment and tell me where you are listening from and what time it is there. And if you like quiet revenge stories where the truth waits patiently, subscribe to Silent Family Revenge. My name is Samuel Green. I am 65 years old, and for 38 years I delivered mail through the east side of Columbus, Ohio, through snow, heat, dogs, bad knees, and every kind of weather the Midwest can throw at a man. My wife Nora used to joke that I knew every porch in Franklin County but still managed to lose my reading glasses twice a week. Nora was 62 when she died. We had been married for 36 years. She was careful, kind, and almost impossible to fool. She worked for 22 years as the office manager for Victor Grayson, the wealthy owner of Grayson Medical Supply. She balanced his books, handled contracts, and knew more about that company than anyone except Victor himself. Her funeral was on a cold Monday morning in November at St. Agnes Church on Livingston Avenue. The sky was low and white, and I stood beside her casket in the same black suit I wore to our daughter's wedding. Our daughter Emily sat in the front pew with her husband Derek. Emily was 34, our only child, the baby Nora had prayed for after 2 miscarriages. Derek was 37, a contractor when work was good, a businessman when he wanted to impress people, and unemployed whenever someone asked too many questions. They had been married 7 years. Derek had a way of making every problem sound like somebody else's fault. By the time his roofing business collapsed, the second time, he owed money to suppliers, friends, and at least one lender whose name he would never say in front of me. Over the last year, Emily and Derek began coming by more often. At first, it felt sweet. Soon, Emily was stopping in after work to help Nora sort bills, mail, and medicine. Nora had mild high blood pressure and a thyroid condition. Nothing unusual. Her doctor had her on 2 daily medications, and she kept them in a blue plastic pill organizer beside the coffee maker. Emily began filling it for her every Sunday evening because, as she said, "Mom, you spent your whole life taking care of everybody else. Let me take one little thing off your plate." I thought it was kindness. Nora thought it was love. About 6 weeks before Nora died, she changed. Not all at once. Small things. She forgot a neighbor's name. She fell asleep during a baseball game she had been excited to watch. She said her legs felt heavy in the morning. Twice. She gripped the kitchen counter and said the room had shifted under her feet. Her doctor adjusted her blood pressure medication and told her to drink more water. The nurse said women her age sometimes ignored symptoms until they became serious. None of it sounded strange enough to scare me. Bodies complain as people get older. So we listened, made appointments, and hoped the next morning would be better. Then one night in October, Nora asked me a question that should have stopped me cold. We were sitting at the kitchen table, and she had a stack of mail in front of her. She looked up and said, "Sam, how did we sign anything with the bank this summer? Anything about the house?" I told her no. Our house on Marion Village Drive was paid off after 30 years of double payments whenever we could manage it. Nora kept staring at a sheet of paper like it had insulted her. She said she had seen an email from Buckeye Federal about a home equity line of credit, but maybe it was just advertising. I told her to call the bank in the morning. She nodded, folded the paper, and put it in her purse. The next morning, she did not mention it. I asked once. She said, "I am still checking." That was Nora. She wanted proof before she spoke. 4 days before she died, I came home early from a doctor's appointment and found Derek alone in our kitchen. The pill organizer was open on the counter, Nora was asleep in the recliner in the living room, with a blanket pulled up to her chin at 3 in the afternoon. Derek smiled too quickly and said Emily had forgotten her phone charger, and Nora had asked him to refill the pillbox while he was there. That bothered me, but not enough. I asked Nora about it later. She looked confused, then embarrassed, and said maybe she had asked him. I let it go, because my wife was tired, and my son-in-law was family. On the morning Nora died, I was at the Kroger on Main Street buying coffee, eggs, and the cinnamon rolls she liked from the bakery. She called Emily instead of me, because my phone was on silent in my coat pocket. By the time I got home 12 minutes later, there were 2 ambulances in front of the house, and Derek was standing on my porch telling a paramedic that Nora had collapsed in the hallway. She was still alive when they loaded her into the ambulance. I followed in my truck, running red lights. I barely remember. At Grant Medical Center, a doctor with kind eyes told me they had done everything they could. Sudden cardiac arrest, he said. Possible medication interaction. Possible heart rhythm issue. Possibly one of those terrible things nobody sees coming. I believed him because grief needed a simple answer. At the funeral, Emily cried with her face hidden in a tissue, but the sound never reached her eyes. Derek kept one hand on her back and the other hand on his phone. Twice during the service, I saw him step out into the hall. I told myself he was calling family. I told myself a lot of things that day. After the burial, we were supposed to drive back to my house for coffee and sandwiches. I was standing near Nora's grave, watching the workers lower the straps. When my phone buzzed inside my coat, the screen said Victor Grayson. I almost ignored it. Then I remembered how much Nora trusted him. When I answered, he did not say hello. He said, "Samuel, where are you?" I told him I was still at the cemetery. He said, "Come to my office now. Do not go home first." Nora left something with me, and I opened it this morning after I heard about the funeral. Sam, I need you to listen carefully. Do not tell Emily. Do not tell Derek. I think you may be in danger. For a few seconds, the cemetery went silent around me. Just Victor breathing on the other end of the line like he had run up a flight of stairs. I asked what Nora had left. He said, "A letter, a flash drive, and enough to make me wish I had opened it sooner." I told Emily I had to meet someone about insurance paperwork and would be home soon. She frowned for half a second, then looked at Derek. Derek looked away too fast. That tiny movement followed me all the way downtown. Grayson Medical Supply was on the top 2 floors of a glass building near Nationwide Boulevard. Nora loved that building. She loved the clean lobby, the bright elevators, the smell of coffee from the cafe downstairs. I parked in the visitor garage at 118 p.m. My funeral shoes were still damp from the cemetery grass. I walked through the lobby, nodded at the security guard, and pressed the elevator button. That was when I heard Derek's voice behind me. Not loud, not angry. Worse than that. Controlled. I turned slightly and saw him at the front desk with Emily beside him. He was leaning over the counter, speaking to the receptionist with a smile that did not belong on his face. Emily still had her black funeral coat on. She was holding Nora's service program rolled tight in her fist. The receptionist shook her head. Derek leaned closer. Emily whispered something to him, sharp and quick. Then Derek pointed toward the elevators. I stepped behind a square concrete pillar by the lobby plants. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my teeth. My daughter was supposed to be at my house, helping neighbors set out ham sandwiches. My son-in-law was supposed to be thanking people for loving Nora. Instead, they were in the lobby of Nora's office building 40 minutes after Victor warned me not to tell them anything. The receptionist picked up the phone. Derek's face tightened. That was my chance. I slipped into an elevator with a man carrying a delivery bag and rode to the 17th floor, staring at my own reflection in the metal doors. Victor was waiting just inside the suite. He had removed his tie and rolled up his sleeves. For a man who always looked like he had been carved out of good manners, he looked frightened. "Did you see them?" he asked. I said, "Why are they here?" He closed the glass door behind me and locked it. "Because I made a mistake. I called your house first this morning," Emily answered. "I only said Nora had left a personal envelope at the office, and that I needed you to pick it up. I did not mention the drive. I did not mention danger. But apparently the word envelope was enough. He led me down the hall to his private office. Victor shut the office door, locked that one too, and opened a wall safe behind a painting of the Scioto River. He placed a large brown envelope on his desk. On the front, in Nora's handwriting, were the words, "For Sam, only if something happens to me." I sat down because my knees were shaking. Victor said Nora had come to his office 3 weeks earlier during lunch. She had been pale, he said, but calm. She told him she was afraid to keep certain things at home. She said if anything happened to her suddenly, he was to give the envelope only to me, in person, and to warn me not to be alone with Emily or Derek until I had read it. I opened the envelope and found a letter folded around a small black flash drive. She wrote that money had gone missing, not from one place, but from several. First, $2 million, 200 from our emergency savings. Then $16, Sube. Then a new home equity line of credit opened against our paid-off house for $50. Ling ling ling. With paperwork claiming both of us had agreed to it. She wrote that she had never signed those papers, and she knew I had not signed them either. The bank file listed Emily as an authorized helper and Derek as the contact for Cedar Ridge Repairs, the company he had started after his roofing business failed. She wrote that when she asked Emily about it, Emily cried and said Nora was confused. When Nora asked Derek, he laughed and told her maybe her medicine was making her paranoid. Then she wrote the sentence that made the office blur in front of me. Sam, I do not think I am confused. I think someone wants me to be. Victor plugged the flash drive into a laptop. Nora had been careful. She had copied what mattered without changing anything. The first folder contained bank screenshots, transfers to Cedar Ridge Repairs, a copy of the loan application, a scanned durable power of attorney with my name and Nora's name typed under signatures that looked close enough to fool someone who did not know us. But I knew my hand. Nora knew hers. Those signatures were lies. The second folder contained photos of Nora's pill organizer beside the original prescription bottles. She had written notes under each picture. Monday morning slot has 3 white tablets. Should have 2. Unknown blue tablet found again. Dizziness worse after Emily fills organizer. Ask pharmacist discreetly. The third folder contained screenshots from the family tablet we kept on the kitchen counter for recipes and video calls with relatives. Emily had apparently used it one afternoon and forgotten that some of her messages synced there. There was a text thread between Emily and someone saved as Tasha C. Emily wrote, "Mom saw the bank notice. She is asking too much." Tasha replied, "Then keep her calm. You said she already gets dizzy." Emily wrote, "Derek says just a little more until the sale papers are done." Tasha replied, "Do not be stupid. Too much of that blood pressure stuff can stop a person." I stopped reading there. I could not breathe. Victor put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Sam, there is more. But you need to hear me. If they know you have this, they will try to explain it away or take it from you. And if they think Nora told you everything, I do not know what they might do." I asked who Tasha was. Victor had already looked her up. Tasha Coleman was Emily's college friend and a pharmacy technician at a small pharmacy in Reynoldsburg. She was not a pharmacist, not a doctor, and had no legal reason to touch Nora's medication. For the first time since Nora died, grief moved aside, and something colder stood up. Victor called an old friend named Marcus Reed, a retired Columbus police detective who now worked as a private investigator. Marcus arrived 45 minutes later with tired eyes and an old notebook. He read Nora's letter. He studied the screenshots. He asked me questions without wasting words. Who had access to the house? Who handled medicine? Who had keys? Who benefited from the loan? Who was pushing me to sell? This is enough for a detective to listen. Marcus said, "It may not be enough for a prosecutor to win. We need bank records obtained properly. We need pharmacy logs. We need a handwriting expert. We need to preserve that tablet. And we need them speaking when they think no one important can hear." I knew what he meant before he said it. He wanted me to go home and act like a broken old man who suspected nothing. I looked at Nora's envelope on Victor's desk. My wife had found a way to reach me after death. The least I could do was answer. I agreed. Marcus told me not to confront anyone. He would coordinate with a detective he trusted once the evidence was packaged correctly. Victor would pay for the first steps, because he said Nora had saved his company more times than he could count. That evening, I went home to a house full of people eating casseroles and speaking softly around me. Emily hugged me at the door. Derek carried my coat to the closet. His hands brushed my pockets a little too carefully. I wanted to grab him by the throat. Instead, I said thank you. For the next 10 days, I became a man I did not recognize. I sat across from my daughter while she poured coffee in Nora's mugs. I let Derek explain that grief made paperwork hard and that he could help me sort things out. I nodded when Emily said the house was too much for one person and maybe selling would let me start fresh. Marcus installed 2 small cameras while I was supposedly spending a night at my brother's place in Dayton. One was hidden in a kitchen smoke detector. The other was inside an old mantel clock in the living room. Marcus made sure everything went through his police contact before anyone relied on it. He was careful. Nora would have liked him for that. The hardest part was pretending to be confused. Emily brought me forms. Derek brought me a folder labeled Estate Simplification. They wanted me to sign a temporary authorization, giving Emily permission to discuss my accounts with the bank. I said I needed time. Derek smiled and said, "Of course. Sam, no pressure." But his eyes had pressure in them. On the 11th day, the kitchen camera caught what grief never would have let me catch alone. Emily and Derek came over with takeout from a barbecue place Nora had hated. I told them I was not hungry. After dinner, I went upstairs and left the television playing low in the bedroom. Marcus had told me to make the house feel safe for them, like I had shut down for the night. In the kitchen, Emily started crying. Real crying this time. But not for Nora. She said, "He is not signing fast enough." Derek said, "Then stop acting like his daughter and start acting like the only person he has left." Emily said, "Do not say that." Derek answered, "It is the truth. Your mother is gone. The bank is already expecting the sale proceeds. If your father calls Buckeye Federal before we close, we are finished." Emily whispered, "Tasha is scared." Derek laughed under his breath. "Tasha should have been scared before she helped you get the pills." Emily said, "You promised it would just make Mom foggy. You said nobody would check if she already had blood pressure problems." Derek snapped back, "And you promised your mother would sign before she started digging. We are past what we promised." I listened to that recording the next morning in Victor's office. I did not cry. Marcus placed the audio, the video, Nora's flash drive, and the tablet into an evidence chain with the detective he trusted. The official records came faster than I expected. The bank confirmed the home equity line had been opened using a notarized power of attorney. The notary stamp belonged to a woman who admitted she had never met Nora or me, but had stamped documents for Derek before as a favor. The pharmacy logs showed early refill activity connected to Tasha's employee credentials. The medication involved was a blood pressure drug Nora had never been prescribed. In high amounts, it could cause extreme dizziness, slow heart rate, and collapse. A court order for further testing was already being discussed. Marcus said we had enough to move, but not enough to be careless. Victor's attorney connected me with Nora's estate lawyer, a calm woman named Beverly Stanton, who had drafted our simple wills years earlier. Beverly scheduled a meeting for the following Thursday morning. Officially, it was to review Nora's will and discuss the house. Unofficially, it was the room where Emily and Derek would walk in, smiling, and walk out with nowhere to hide. I spent the days before that meeting letting them believe they had almost won. Emily came by and sat beside me on the couch. She held my hand and said, "Mom would not want you drowning in this house." "Dad." Derek stood by the fireplace and nodded like a pastor at a funeral. I told them maybe they were right. Derek's shoulders relaxed. That was the first small piece of revenge Nora gave me. Not shouting, not rage, just patience. Beverly's office was in a brick building in German Village. We met at 1030A. Emily wore a navy dress and pearl earrings Nora had given her for graduation. Derek wore a charcoal suit with a tie too bright for mourning. Victor was already there when I arrived, sitting quietly in the small conference room with a laptop bag beside his chair. Emily noticed him and stiffened. "What is he doing here?" she asked. I said. Your mother trusted him. Derek gave a short laugh. This is family business. Beverly looked up from her folder and said, Mr. Grayson is here at Mr. Enon Green's request. Derek sat down, but he did not stop watching Victor. For 10 minutes. Beverly reviewed basic documents. Nora's will left everything to me. As expected. If I had died first, everything would have gone to Emily. Simple. Clean. Ordinary. Then Beverly closed the folder and said, Before we discuss the house, Mr. Green is asked to address a separate matter. Emily turned to me. Dad. I looked at her face. For 1 second. I tried to find the little girl who used to fall asleep on Nora's lap with jam on her shirt and ribbons in her hair. Then I remembered Nora gripping the kitchen counter, asking why the room was moving. I said, Your mother left me a letter. Derek stood up so fast his chair bumped the wall. This is ridiculous. The conference room door opened before he could say more. Marcus Reed stepped in with 2 Columbus police detectives behind him. One of them closed the door gently. Emily's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Victor placed the laptop on the table and pressed play. The kitchen recording filled the room. Emily's voice first. He is not signing fast enough. Then Derek. The bank is already expecting the sale proceeds. Then the words about Tasha, the pills, Nora being foggy, blood pressure problems. Emily started shaking her head. No, that is not what it means. Derek pointed at me. You recorded us. In your own house, Marcus said. Mr. Green cooperated with law enforcement after receiving evidence of suspected financial exploitation and possible poisoning. Sit down. Mr. Wallace. Derek did not sit. One detective stepped closer and said, Do it now. Derek sat. Beverly slid photocopies across the table. The forged power of attorney. The loan application. The transfer records to Cedar Ridge Repairs. The pharmacy logs. The notary statement. Nora's handwritten notes. The text messages from Emily to Tasha. Then she said, The only thing that could have hurt me more than silence. Dad. We were desperate. I waited. She said, Derek had people threatening him. We were going to pay it back after the house sold. Mom would not understand. She never understood how bad things were. I said, Your mother understood bills. She understood fear. She understood helping family. What she did not understand was why her daughter needed her confused to steal from her. Emily began to sob. Derek leaned forward and said, Nobody meant for Nora to die. The room went completely still. One detective asked, What did you say? Derek blinked. He realized too late that his mouth had run ahead of his lawyer. I looked at him and said, Say her name again, and I will forget every promise I made to myself this morning. That was the closest I came to losing control. The detectives separated them. Emily cried as they led her out. Derek tried to argue, until one detective told him the pharmacy technician was already being interviewed. That shut him up so fast, I knew Marcus had been right. People like Derek are brave only while they think the truth is locked in somebody else's drawer. The legal process took months. There were hearings, motions, lab reports, bank affidavits, and days when I sat outside the courthouse wondering how a father is supposed to pray when the person in handcuffs is his own child. The final toxicology review found dangerously elevated levels of a blood pressure medication in Nora's system, a medication she had never been prescribed. The investigator could not prove Emily personally placed every pill in the organizer, but the messages, the pharmacy records, and the kitchen recording proved she knew what was happening and helped cover it. Emily pleaded guilty to financial exploitation of an elderly or disabled adult, forgery, and reckless homicide. She received 7 years. Derek took his chances at trial and lost. He was convicted on the financial charges and involuntary manslaughter, and he received 13 years. Tasha Coleman pleaded guilty to illegally diverting medication and conspiracy. She received 4 years and lost any chance of working in a pharmacy again. Some people ask whether 7 years was enough for Emily. I ask myself that on bad nights. Then I remember that some prisons have bars, and some sit behind your eyes forever. I still live in the house on Marion Village Drive. I changed the locks and threw away the blue pill organizer. For a long time, I could not sit at the table where Nora had sorted coupons and written birthday cards. Now I sit there every morning with coffee and talk to her like she is in the next room. The bank reversed the fraudulent line of credit after the court findings. Some of the money came back through restitution. Not all. I used what did come back to start a small fund through a local patient advocacy clinic. It helps older couples get medication reviews and financial paperwork checks when something feels wrong. Victor contributed the first large donation. He said Nora would have corrected the grammar on the brochure before approving it. He and I are friends now. Victor tells me Nora kept a photo of me on her desk. The one from our 25th anniversary where I had cake frosting on my tie. He said she told everyone I was the safest place she had ever known. I was not safe enough to save her. Now I try to carry that thought differently. Nora did not leave that envelope because she thought I had failed. She left it because she knew I would finish what she started. She knew I would not let our daughter and her husband turn her death into paperwork. Profit. And silence. Sometimes I think about that moment in the lobby when I saw Emily and Derek at the front desk, still wearing funeral clothes, already chasing the envelope. That image told me everything, before the evidence did. Grief waits. Greed hurries. Nora understood that. She had always understood people. The last thing she wrote in her letter was not about money or medicine or fear. It was one sentence at the bottom of the page. Sam, if I am wrong, forgive me. If I am right, do not let love make you blind. She was right, and love did not make me blind. It made me patient. If this story stayed with you, leave a comment and tell me which moment hit you hardest. Was it Victor's warning after the funeral? Nora's letter hidden in the safe? Or the kitchen recording that finally exposed the truth? And if you want more stories about betrayal, family secrets, and quiet justice, like this video and subscribe to Silent Family Revenge. I will see you in the next story.